Good day, everyone. I recently put out a channel questionnaire, much like I did a couple years ago, to bring in and digest feedback from you. This is particularly important to me to do now, as I've gone full-time on the streaming and YouTube video production. Firstly, I want to extend a thank you for filling out my obnoxiously long questionnaire. As a primarily strategy-focused channel, it's of no surprise that people are interested in hearing the results and crunching through them as I have done so. So let's jump right into it. Firstly, we have age and gender. These aren't particularly interesting to me, as it doesn't matter if it's adolescent little boys or old ladies who are tuning in. I still make the content that I want to make around here. What's interesting to me is if there are any running themes that tightly adhere to certain demographics, or if these values change significantly between questionnaires. Well, a quick jump between 2017 and 2019 show that the age generally shifted up. Are there more older people tuning in, or have the younger viewers stuck around but aged? Either way, I'm just glad to see that the under 13s continue to barely register on the chart here. I know I just said that it doesn't matter who tunes in, but even though I keep my streams PG-13, I'd just still rather not think that actual kids are tuning in. Kids tend to be smarter than they're given credit for, but they're still utter fools, and I don't want that knock on the door asking why I've been teaching advanced frozen social engineering to children. Similarly, nationality is just there to see if there are common themes from certain groups. It was amusing to see that burger was submitted a cracking 8 times, which is up 6, or up from 6 last time. Next up, there's a question on when people started watching. Leaving aside the people who've been watching me from before I even started streaming, don't know where they were coming in from, this is largely a gauge on viewer retention. Given the sheer number of regulars who tune in on Twitch chat and Discord, you can anecdotally say that people who tune into the channel tend to stick around often, but this is a good way to get some actual numbers on it. If we'd seen a large amount of respondees saying that they had first tuned in the past year, then it would be a sign that I churned through a lot of viewers rather than keeping them for a long time. I certainly prefer the latter. There's something quite comfy about building a community that lasts for years, with people who have been around for years, whether they say a peep or not. Of course, there's the analytics argument that it says that people who've been around longer are the types of people that would be invested enough to respond in the questionnaire. It's good to acknowledge that, but as analytics go, this is just a wet finger in the wind, so it'll do for me. I remember working with some analytics people who would no doubt be flaying me for the nature at which this is done, but this is what works for us in the channel today. So let's go to discovery. This is something really important to me. YouTube and Twitch are absolutely massive. And there's not only something for everyone out there, there's more out there than everybody could ever hope to consume in the time they have. Many content creators looking to start, they're lucky if they get 2 live viewers and 10 VOD hits, and that's their lot. I would know I was there before. But it's still baffling to me that people tune in to what I do at all, so this answer helps me figure out what even gets people here in the first place. I want to grab some of the more popular responses and give my take on them. The most common one going around was recommendation, either through algorithm or friends, which chugged in at 303 responses. The YouTube algorithm is one thing, but I find it hard to imagine in my head a situation where somebody actually tells another person, hey, here's a guy you should check out, and it's me. I just cannot see that in my head. Specifically, Roomba came up for a staggering 187 responses. Now, Roomba was the big EU4 streamer when I started out. It's pretty cool that I made enough of a splash that so many Roomba viewers would be interested in my channel too. Reddit also comes up with 121 responses. Now, I straight up abhor Reddit as a platform, but there's no denying its popularity and even usefulness when it comes to specific interests. Now, in the early days, I remember seeing my exploits and runs being posted up on Reddit, and the most pivotal moment in memory was when I announced I would play as an OPM, and then I ended up playing as Ming. That Mingles campaign remains one of my top streaming memories, and it's quite likely some of the 121 respondees came from there. Similarly, the Paradox forums comes in with 120 responses, and specifically 96 of them brought up my after-action reports, or AARs. Now, I used to be a prominent poster on the Paradox forums. Jinx, try saying that 10 times in a row. Now, that before I was ever a streamer, I wrote a couple of after-action reports, and I took part in some forum-based challenges. I got fond memories of doing the Sardinia challenge in EU3, for example. Those were some good times. I never could have imagined the journey that I would take from there, but what I'm super curious about is how many of the people came to this channel from the Paradox forums when I was a developer versus when I was a fan. I never did any more after-action reports after becoming a developer, for better or for worse. Almost certainly for worse. After-action reports are great. But I'd be curious about that one. So, put something in the comments there if you were one of the ones that answered that way. There's also the Dev Clash. The Dev Clash comes in with 108 responses, and I was kind of baffled by that one, because I'm quite confident that I've never once plugged my personal channel when doing the Dev Clash. I keep a strict policy on keeping private life and work life separate. So yeah, this one confuses me. Some of the respondees are going to have to fill me in on this one. How did the Dev Clashes lead you to my personal channel? Please let me know that one. Quite certain I never brought it up. It's very important to me not to plug my channel in general, but certainly not on company business. Anyway, that's just my take. Frostpunk came in with 48 respondees, citing that as something that brought them to the channel. Frostpunk really came out of nowhere. I was really absorbed by the fantastic city builder from 11-Bit Studios, and I'm quite convinced that I've made the most ambitious Frostpunk challenge videos in existence. Not usually that cocky when it comes to my stuff, but I've been looking and haven't seen anything quite like it yet. Anyway, when I do side games like this, I never quite expect it to generate people that stick around, so it seems that Frostpunk in particular did that here. Quill18 came up for 25 of the respondees, and Quill and I don't really have any history. I met him once at PDXCon professionally, and that's that, so I can only assume that he mentioned me once before in a video of his. Flory comes in with 9 respondees saying that they discovered my channel because of him, and now Flory's a wonderful guy. I'm happy I ever met him, but I'm surprised that this isn't higher. It would be nice if Flory someday did a questionnaire of his own, and we see what this number is reversed. But what's super interesting about this is that this is the same number of people who said that they discovered this channel because specifically their brother showed the channel to them. So interesting and amusing in equal measure on that one. Moving along, as for where people watch my content, now these numbers confirm what's already expected, or rather suspected. And it's also what we saw in the previous questionnaire if we flash back to 2017. The majority of those who watch what I do so on YouTube. Now bringing my content over to YouTube is a considerable pain in the neck. I complain about it a lot. It's a tax on time, the videos need to be sliced up, exported over from Twitch, and the method of which has gone through quite some changes and sometimes outright breaks, and from there sorting out the schedules and playlists. Like, it's the opposite of fun, right? I do streaming because I love streaming, not because I love chopping up videos and arranging all these things on YouTube. But still, it appears that it's appreciated by many, and even the majority, so I keep it up. I gotta hand it to the 20-something respondees, though, who say that they're just in it for the fun posting. Now we're into some questions that I have an elevated interest in since going full-time, that is to say when people would prefer to see my streams. Previously I was limited to weekends and evenings, and all it took was a long or tiring day at work to kick those plans into the gutter, and kick into the gutter they did. And now I have a lot more freedom over when I do my streams, and other than getting regular sleep, it's of little consequence to me when these streams are done. I wanted to know when people would prefer these streams to be, as I could make a schedule around that quite happily. And the responses were overwhelmingly in favour of European evenings, particularly on weekdays, but I couldn't ignore that there was still a healthy number of people saying that they would prefer it to be outside of those hours, and it's using this that I crafted the new channel schedule. I wanted my strategy streams to be done at consistent hours, so I put those in the evenings, which suited the majority of people. But since viewer numbers tend to remain a non-priority for me, I put the other streams, the DDR, the wildcard, the weekly one-shot in earlier, or so-called less popular hours, So I wouldn't simply be ignoring people who'd prefer those. I'm pretty happy with the new schedule, and it's something I've wanted to have and stick to for a long time now. Schedule's been like a running joke on the channel for ages, because every time before I've said, yeah, I'll have a schedule, it lasts, sometimes it even lasts for a month or two, and then it just dies because of the aforementioned kick to the gutter from long or tiring days at work. But no, it's here to stay. Might take a while for the joke aspect to go, but there you go. Anyway, for those that actually preferred the streams from midnight to 8 in the morning, I'm sorry, but I do have to sleep sometime, so those ones got relegated to the nope zone. Alright, so chat rules. The last time I asked about these and what could be changed about it, many people liked the rules that there are, or didn't care, and it's not something I want to change, as I'm really happy with how things are at the moment. We do run a fairly draconian Twitch chat. If you only watch VODs, then this is not really of any consequence to you either way, but it's of vital importance to me that the hallmarks of cancerous live streaming culture are stamped out of existence on my channel. Currently the streams are really civil, even at close to 1,000 viewers, and that to me is as wonderful as it is unbelievable. Alright, next up, a bit of an awkward question. Which of the following do you like to see on the channel? This is awkward because my stance has always been I play what I want to play on the channel. I could imagine nothing more suffocating for running a channel than constantly running whatever was popular, or profitable, or otherwise locked in forever. So this question is here to answer my own curiosity and what people would like to see, not decide what will be done in the future. At one glance, it may be wise to say, everybody enjoys seeing Europa Universalis 4, so let's have nothing but that. And while that would certainly bring in the most viewers, good lord, it would be mind-numbing. Now, I love the game. Even after years of playing it, streaming it, and even working on it, it's still a game that makes me excited at the prospect of playing it. So I have more campaign options than I even have the time to do at the moment. But if that's all I ever did, I am certain I would get sick of it. That's why I still do wildcard streams where there's only a fraction of the people that tune in, and there's the weekly one-shots that are sometimes great and sometimes painful, and it's why I take my punishment games, where however you cut it, someone is going to be having a bad time. So while this is a strategy channel, I will never drop variety streaming, not for money, not for fame, certainly not for viewers. Yeah, anyway, that kind of transpired into a rant. Let's look at the actual answers here. As hinted, almost everybody enjoys seeing EU4 on the channel, and that's to be expected. EU4 has been the bedrock of the channel, and one of the first things I ever streamed on the channel, in fact. But I wonder if anyone out there can correctly answer what the first stream I ever did was. I'll leave that one to you. Hearts of Iron was something enjoyed by about half of the respondees, and honestly I was expecting more. Maybe it's because I haven't streamed it in ages, so the last time I did that would have been Pony Mod? Was it? Yeah, probably was, man, those peace conferences. Now maybe it's just not that big a game for the people who tune in here, but in any case it's still my second favourite Paradox game. So I'm actually planning on playing more of it now that I've gone full-time. Not excessively, but I'd like to do a campaign or two in the next year. City builders are very popular, but I've played so much Caesar 3, and people still claw for more. I'll be honest, I'm utterly tapped out on challenges for that game. At this point, I feel like I've done everything I can even conceive of in the game, so new challenges are hard to come by. That said, I always develop an itch for that game sooner or later, so it'll be back in due time. Stronghold is another game I love. Clearly Frostpunk is as well. I love a good city builder as long as they're a bit quirky. The likes of SimCity and City Skylines. They're a bit too precise, too sterile, a bit too modelled for my liking. Say if you put Banished and City Skylines side by side, it should be clear why I prefer Banished. Oh, now Patrician 4 is a long-running joke on this channel. That game was streamed for over 100 hours, spawned a 167-part playlist on YouTube, filled with the most mind-numbing gameplay content ever conceived by mankind, and its name is widely cursed on the channel, hoped never to return. And with that said, 55.5% of respondees say they enjoy seeing its content on the channel. Now this might be some kind of masochistic delight, but either way, Port Royale 4 is slated for a 2020 release date, so we can expect a return of a playlist much like Patrician's again. And I think that's where just people clock out of the channel for a straight month. Alright, Dance Dance Revolution, or DDR. It's by a considerable amount the least popular option here. It's my namesake. It's my favourite game of all time, but it's hilariously unpopular. It just means that people don't need to tune in for Thursdays at noon by the new schedule then, since I do intend to stream it every week regardless. DDR streams are consistently my least popular, and they get the fewest views on YouTube, so it's kind of, well, we see that the numbers match up with reality, but again, we don't stream for views around here. Some people think that's just like a joke or a gimmick, but I could go on at length about that one. Alright, Roguelikes, they're quite popular. Death Road to Canada's always a hoot, and I'm often asked when the next Into the Airlock series will be. I love these streams, they have a lot of viewer input and interaction, and I enjoy the bizarre choices that people take, leaving me to pick up the pieces. I'm always on the lookout for more games like these, so if you do know of any, right, just point me in their direction. Specifically regarding Into the Airlock, or FTL there, I know people want to see more of it. I just don't want to return to it so often that it loses its magic. When we did Season 2, the Wheel of Mutiny was a great addition. I'd be looking for something similarly refreshing. Well, I'd need to find that before I jump back into FTL, in my opinion. The weekly one-shot's really middling here. I've now run over 120 of these, and there's no sign of stopping. I love the pressure, I love the variety of games, and the threat of the punishments, so even if it was less popular than DDR, it would still be a channel staple, or if it turned into something else the same way the 2 Hours of Hell became the weekly one-shot. RPGs are on the list, even though they don't appear on the channel that often. Resetia was an absolute jewel, Moonlighter was a surprise hit, and Terra Enigma is very close to my heart, but RPGs, they're largely verbose, they're grindy, they're cringy, so unless it's something special, I don't tend to have much interest in streaming them. I'd really like to play, say, Tales of Symphonia someday, purely because of the coffee scene. That's all I know of the game. But I have a hard time imagining that I would ever stream that title. I cite again the cringy part. That said though, if something like Resetia 2 were coming out, then that likely would be on the channel. Right, lewd games. Lewd games have been around the channel for quite some time, although they're often streamed elsewhere than Twitch, because although I've asked Twitch about it, they absolutely say no, I can't stream these there. In fact, if you were around during Honeycam, you'll know they're serious about that. So Kamidori, Rants, and Honeypop, they were all highly enjoyable, and we're really likely to see a rerun of Kamidori and a run of Rants 6 soon, and they should hopefully be YouTube friendly. These aren't popular choices, clearly, but such is the niche that lewd games have for themselves. Next up's the simulation games and trucking. Trucking's essentially a subset of simulation, and they do share the lack of popularity alongside lewd games. Simulation games are overwhelmingly crap, but there are some jewels in the rough that make them worth trying out to me. Trucking is an absolute gem, though, and it's not something that occurs frequently on the channel, but it's something that I love coming back to when I just want to relax. Apparently that's something only 30% of people enjoy, but, well, lucky them, I suppose. Then there's bloody awful games, and I know there's contention on what bloody awful is and is not. I love seeing games that are so bad that they beggar belief. Sometimes they're not so enjoyable to play, but that's for me to worry about. Their popularity on the channel is comparable to that of RPGs. The exception is that, thanks to punishment games and weekly one-shots, there's likely to be more bloody awful games than RPGs. Now, speaking of punishment games, they're enjoyed by about half of Respondees. It might be odd for me to say that I only stream games that I enjoy, yet I welcome these punishment games that I don't control over. I have to go through some miserable experiences at times. Well, know that I get my kick out of them existing as a looming threat for when I do fail my challenge runs on the weekly one-shot and similar. Without teeth to that threat, I find that the challenge runs would lose their tension for me. Rune Factory and Harvest Moon have both been on the channel before. These games are really close to my heart, but I personally don't think they stream so well. They're fairly dull, they're monotonous, you go through the same motions over and over again, and I honestly don't think they make for entertaining content. And I guess that's reflected here in the 27-ish% of people enjoying them. The thing is, excitement isn't always what you want, so it's not always what I want here. I found these streams to be really relaxing, and I'm looking forward to doing it again when Rune Factory 4 Special releases, and Rune Factory 5. I expect both of those on the channel. Co-op games, though, they are surprisingly low on the enjoyability here. Well, it's a surprise to me. I had a blast playing through them on the few occasions that we've had them on stream. I think there's a real magic that comes from having people bounce off of each other. Resident Evil 5 was a pretty bloody awful game in my view, but playing it alongside Lucky made the whole experience really enjoyable. And then we have the spooky games. I want more of these. It wouldn't matter if like negative 100% of people said they enjoyed seeing these. I love a good spooky game, but they're so hard to come by. Ao Oni and Witch's House were so good, and I'm always looking for more good spooks. But damn is it hard to find them. It's not often that I recommend my own videos, but if you've not seen the Ao Oni 2 Hours of Hell, then I highly recommend that. That is good spooks. Maybe if more people did see that, the rate would be a bit higher up than this. Perhaps not. Alright, heading along, if you have a favourite campaign or stream of Jake's, which one is it and why? I decided to forgo having voting on each and every campaign that I could think of, because even for this long questionnaire, that's a bit too obnoxious. So this isn't asked so much to hear what people's favourite campaigns are. The answers are really wide-reaching and scattered. Frostpunk is a choice of over 100, as is Into the Airlock, Bad Ideas Guy, and there's many unsurprising entries here. Patrician 4 was the top dog for 50 kindred spirits, and Rants tickled 73 others. Again, this is very much preference. Even Super Hexagon and Whiskey Tasting were a favourite for 3 people each. What I scoured for were common themes. Here's some coming up. Challenge was the most frequent theme. Many cited that as the reason across many different answers, such as the challenges he imposed on himself definitely make things more interesting. Another quote, Caesar 3, especially seeing the community-made challenge maps, watching how close you get to exhausting all your money and still coming back is awesome. Third quote, Unlucky Luca, because of the display of great skill in overcoming the challenge. The Wheel of Misfortune gimmick was also an entertaining aspect. It's really nice to see challenge cited so often, because whilst I like to relax from time to time, I love the tension of a looming and burning threat. Although I've really got to hand it to the one 18 to 25-year-old British male who apparently loved my Mount and Blade Warband series. I'm glad to see somebody like that. Right, I'm asking about exploits in runs again. There's definitely a preference for having them, but there were a lot of follow-up messages detailing it, saying that it depends on the situation. I haven't been doing exploit runs in my Paradox games for many years now, largely due to feeling a bit conflicted on showing the sides of games that I work on professionally. But that's no longer the case. I'm happy to cook up brand new exploits. I haven't really had the fun of theory crafting exploits in ages. I used to sit down for quite a while on end, just staring at the game, mulling in my head different ways that I could exploit all the mechanics, especially in EU4, and I burned a lot of hours just staring at it, making little notes, poking at things to see how they work. Well, I got the freedom to do that kind of thing again, and certainly the time with which to do it. I'm not here to have exploits be the mainstay of what I do, but they are fun to show off every now and then, especially if you show them off once. That's the thing, and then that's it. There's no need to keep Keep exploiting it till end of days, in my view. Right, so what people like to see in Europa campaigns, this has barely changed from last time. People love the challenges, the quirks, and the achievements, with a considerable number of people enjoying seeing me get my backside kicked in. Both playing tall and blobbing were not really highly contributing factors in what people want to see in runs, so they're not interesting in themselves. People could also add their own answers here, but many of them just ended up being a flavour of do your own thing, or examples of quirky runs that they like the joy of map painting or Unlucky Luca. Man, Unlucky Luca was super popular. And I really enjoyed doing it as well, and I don't think I'm going to forget having to declare a no CB war and a great power. Alright, voice, humour and skills continue to be the main reason people cite for what I do to draw people in. There were many custom responses here, and I worried what the annoying streamer comment was. It ended up being the usual lack of annoying streamer crap like facecam, donations, and the like. Many custom responses were pretty much along those lines, enjoying a stream that lacked all the notifications, facecams, shoutings, and many other distractions from streams. One response in particular, from a young mathematician, caught my eye, and well, here it is in its entirety. As mentioned before, his attitude towards, let's say, life. He created this beautiful oasis in the filth that is Twitch chat in order to enjoy presenting and sharing his gaming adventures. He wishes for people to prove competence before gaining rights, at least reputation or / respect. He tries his best to make things interesting by ways of real challenges. He uses his freedom to do what he wants with what belongs to him, even when, let's say, it may enrage some typical Twitch chatters. He shows no restraint in doing what he loves, even if it is god-awful games, and god are those bad game streams good. Finally, his earnest and pragmatic actions to maintain this lovable sanctuary give the streams a feeling of cozy home, in which a child friend gets to mess around whichever way they want. That's very sweet. I openly asked what people dislike the most about the channel, and I had some people come to me saying, is this really what you want to know? Maybe that, I shouldn't ask for bad things like this, but my take is that there's a lot of compliments in the survey, and while that's tasty, compliments are junk food for the ego. The real Sunday roast comes from the satisfaction of a job well done. For that, I want to know what could be improved on, or at least what people have friction with in my channel. Lots of responses were people saying nothing, or humorously saying DDRJake. I hope it was humorously. Anyway, we're digging past that. Schedule, or the lack thereof, came up a tonking 129 times. Between putting this survey out and now, we actually have a somewhat reliable schedule. I like to think that alleviates things to the bulk of these people, as it does for me. I've long felt the burn from the lack of schedule because I want this channel to be something I personally would like to see. I'd get aggravated if I didn't know when to tune in, or the stream's times were erratic, or I sit down and find that I'm 2 episodes behind in a series I like because the streamer randomly decided to run them at 2 AM on a Thursday. There were over 30 counts of people wanting more editing on YouTube videos. This is something I would like to improve on. Editing videos is not at all my forte. It takes a lot of time and enjoyment from an otherwise fun hobby, but I will put some serious effort into looking for a solution for this though. I wonder if there are actually people that can be hired to do such editing. I did have people poke me about such things before, so with this newfound time and freedom I should actually give that some attention. Viewer reduction strategies came up a few times, but amusingly both because they were there and because they are not often enough. It seems that people find them to be some sort of gimmick, whilst others find them to be highly enjoyable. Unfortunately for those who want them gone, though, viewer reduction strategies are here to stay. The lack of content and the lack of variety in content comes up a lot. I would hope that going full-time has stemmed the issues with lack of content, whilst lack of variety is something that I instituted my varied schedule for. In particular, there was a comment saying that when there's a new EU4 campaign or similar, that's all that's seen on the YouTube feed for the following month or more. This is something I took to heart when setting up future streams, so now it's intended that even when there is a strategy campaign ongoing, there are also long play videos, wildcards, a weekly one-shot, and those should punctuate the uploads. I'd be keen to hear how this pans out over the coming months. It also prompted me to, for the first time ever, actually load up YouTube as somebody not logged in, incognito, and check out my channel to see what it's like from the other side. Because I never look at this. I mean, I just kind of dump my videos on YouTube and move along. And I don't really watch that many series or channels on YouTube, so it was kind of interesting for me to see what it looks like on the other end. And yeah, I got to the point where I just saw this wall of nothing but Pirate Naxos, and I'm like, okay, if I came here for variety content, I'd get a bit scunnered if during a campaign that's all you saw for a month. So thanks for that comment, because that opened my eyes. Right, what else do we have? Conversely, there were several mentions of there being too much content. And my take on this is that there's well, it's much like my take on the people who responded with the likes of "I don't like DDR" or "lewd games alienate me" or "your whiskey reviews are not my cup of tea." I'm interested in bettering the channel, but not at the expense of taking away things that I and other viewers are currently enjoying. If there's too much content, you can choose not to watch it, but if there's not enough, you can't magic some into existence. Now, if the content itself ended up being too poor in quality from that's a different story, but I think I'm my own worst critic on that front. There were more points here than I could ever hope to cover, but there were a few other outliners that caught my fancy. I'll just quote them as is. His tendency to condescend, but you do you, Jake, I'm not your mother. I wonder about this, because my mother does watch my streams. She's probably watching this. But apparently a middle-aged Aussie man said this. There's another one saying, he is not Scottish enough. And I'm confused here. What more do you want on this front? If you want to hear Scottish twang, go and check out the Scottish Twitter. But I don't see my Scottish accent as something to parade around. It kind of makes me cringe sometimes when I see Scottish content producers obviously laying it on thick. You know, go figure, people enjoy it, but still, that's not for me. This is me. I think Jake is a genuinely evil person. Sometimes I find it hard to morally justify watching him to myself. Thank you, unspecified German, for that criticism of the channel. Right, following reading through all these humbling remarks, there's a more joyful question, and that's what people like the most about the channel. But I really don't want to chew deeply into this because I'm not well predisposed towards taking compliments. But the most prominent remark, coming in to close to 400 of the responses, was my humour. I assume this isn't about cracking jokes, since I've never really seen myself as a terribly funny individual. But the best I can understand, this is just general mannerisms, fitting the wavelength of many viewers. So I'll take that as good, if slightly worrying. There's an honourable mention to people who responded, citing comfiness, relaxation, and permutations thereof. It turns out far more people come here to put their feet up than I'd expected, many enjoying the chill atmosphere, and that's reassuring to me because that's the kind of place that I'm trying to make here. I was curious to see if desire for other Paradox games had changed over time. People appear to have warmed towards Stellaris since the last time. There is a growing hunger for Victoria, whilst Imperator is contentious at best here. Vicky 2 is a largely unlikely candidate for streams, and as I said before, I'm all but certain to run Hearts of Iron 4 in the not-too-distant campaign. I'm on the fence, though, about Imperator and Stellaris, while CK3, that's a sure thing upon its release. I have to ask about Facecam every time. It's not going to happen. It is never going to happen. And if you're part of the 10.4% who absolutely want Facecam on the stream, Your best bet is with the occasional face rig trucking or the April Fool's streams. I don't like facecam in streams in general, and I certainly don't want it on my stream. I find that it detracts from game experiences, it incentivizes overreactions, it's just tactless in general. My grand plan was actually not to have my face be known at all, since the streams are about the games, right? They're not about me. Then again, my time at Paradox killed and buried that dream, but keeping my face off streams remains important to me, and that goes for plastering faces over YouTube thumbnails as well. Ugh. Okay, here's one that I don't have a strong preference for myself. How long should videos and highlights be? I've made half-hour videos for strategy campaigns and whole-length highlights of other streams like Frostpunk or weekly one-shots since the dawn of time, but if there was a clear preference away from that, I wouldn't really have any issue with changing it. That said, the clear majority here like half-hour video lengths, and most of the custom comments that came in were variants of "it doesn't matter to me" or "it depends on the content," so I don't see any compelling reason to change how things are currently done based on this. And oh, this one gives me a good giggle. And the phrasing about it is all on me. I asked who supports the channel, but I should have been clear that I meant Twitch subscriber, not YouTube subscriber. I evidently don't have over 700 Twitch subscribers, but it was a cute answer. That aside, I maintain this channel is not run in the pursuit of money, but I'm always confused about what drives people to support the channel financially. The follow-up was what made people who do choose to support do so, and for those that do not, what it would take for them to do so. About 90% of the answers were all to support the streamer or some variant of, including to support Jake going full-time and in the hopes that it makes him even more motivated, parenthesis, pushing out more content. Another quote from this is, definitely now more than ever to support going full-time. It isn't always easy, and I would like you to succeed. And there was even a quote for repay felt debt owned for great entertainment, which funnily enough is what caused me to start streaming in the first place. I'm really touched by how people want to show their support for the channel, and it certainly does help. I mean, I would stream regardless, but I certainly wouldn't be going full-time if it was without the kind of support that people have shown today, so thanks a lot for that. Next up, I wanted to know that if you didn't support the channel, what would it take for you to do so? Many different spins of if only I had more money, or a job, or a better job. There was one in all capitals that just said, give me a raise. And there was even one self-proclaimed swamp person who claims that their wife won't allow it. These aren't factors that I can influence, at least as far as I'm aware, so I dug into the other reasons. There were quite a lot of citations from people for whom exclusive content would make them support the channel. Things that came up were paid access to the videos on demand, or VODs, exclusive content, highlights available to subscribers and such. It was interesting to hear, but these will not happen on the channel. Paywalling my content is a bridge too far for me. I remember once, perhaps about 4 years ago or so, I tried toggling the VODs only for subscribers button on Twitch, and seconds later, somebody in the Twitch chat said, hey, I can't see the VODs, is something wrong? And I'll always remember that because it was a surge of guilt that made me instantly tear down the paywall and vow never to consider it again. There were, however, about 20 people who said that regular streaming schedule is what it takes, so we'll see if our newfangled schedule helps on that front. There is, of course, the most interesting stat from this, and that is the staggering 37 Brazilian respondees, and of those only 16 conformed to the stereotype and claimed that they were too impoverished to support. Last time it was all of them, so let's hear it for improving social conditions in the land of contrasts. The last question is something new, and I picked it up from a company who performs questionnaires professionally. I like it a lot. It was, if you had a magic wand which could change one thing about the channel, what would it be? There were lots of amusing and interesting stream requests, like a 72-hour Death Road to Canada stream, 24-hour trucking stream, more Patrician 4, even powerlifting tutorials. There were also plenty of more content wishes. Honestly, there are so many of these I couldn't even begin to do the answers here justice. But what I think I'll do is I'll keep the list of them, and I will cite them when one of these wishes comes true, because I think it would be a nice thing to say, this 24-hour charity trucking stream goes out to that French viewer in his 20s, you know who you are. The final blank part of the form to fill in was largely filled in with have a nice day, good luck and full time and similar, which was really heartwarming, although one particular middle-aged German had a longer entry. It was a hodgepodge of advice, but it started with, well, Jake, if you are actually reading these. And that tickled me. I mean, you guys made the effort to fill out my punitively long questionnaire, so I do my dues, and I read it from top to bottom myself too. As a general comment about the questionnaire, I was really happy and impressed that even though it was obnoxiously long, it was filled out entirely seriously. Aside from an 18 to 25-year-old male burgher who submitted the entire lyrics to Genghis Khan's 1979 Moscow song, pretty much everything was played straight, and I really appreciate that. It's not like there's any comeuppance to saying Big Dick is back in town for every answer, but nobody did, and that made me particularly happy. Now, you may have your own questions or thirst for information about the questionnaire feedback, or maybe there's something you wanted to hear from it that was not covered here. In that case, post in the comments. As I'm sure you know by now, I read each and every YouTube comment left on my videos, so leave something there. I'll endeavor to answer what I can. And that wraps up our 2019 channel questionnaire. I hope this was as interesting to you as it was to me. It certainly was very interesting for me, and highly enjoyable to read through from top to bottom. So I want to extend a very heartfelt gratitude towards everybody that filled it in, all just shy of 3,000 of you. And until next time, it's a cheers and cheerio.